On today's episode, we're talking about the power of community.
From Engagement, I'm David Millay, and this is Flip the Switch.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Flip the Switch, where we sit down with leaders in customer experience and employee experience, and we try to figure out what are the trends that they're paying attention to? What are the experiments that they're running? What are the principles that have helped guide them to success throughout their careers? Then we take all those insights and we apply them to the world of sports and entertainment. Now, today's episode, we are sitting down with Christina Garnett from HubSpot. She is their senior marketing manager of offline community and advocacy. What does that mean? Well, it means that she's working with people that love using their software, their CRM software, which we use here at Engagement. And they're taking them and saying, how can we turn our biggest, best customers into a marketing arm for us to help grow the platform purely because they love it? How can we equip those fans to go tell more friends and family and colleagues about the great tool that they already love using? So she's going to talk about the different programs that they're working on. One of the big ones we're going to dive deep on is a program called HubFans, where they are doing a lot of really cool things to use community, different than audience, to really help grow HubSpot. Christina, I'm not going to steal too much more of her thunder here, but she is a true polymath, having had experience in a ton of different areas, from being a teacher to a social media strategist. She's really been all over, but the core thing that stood out to me is that Christina gets people. And at the end of the day, when you're thinking about marketing and connecting and engaging deeper with your fans and customers, that's where it all starts, is the deep understanding of who it is that you're actually trying to serve. What are their interests? What are their pain points? And Christina does a great job of getting in deep and understanding who HubSpot's core user is and providing value based on that. So without further ado, let's jump into this episode with Christina Garnett. Christina, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to chat.
Happy Friday. Let's jump in. So one thing that we have had constantly come up with our clients in the sports space, I've got a lot of Disney background. So for us, community has always been really big, but right now it is definitely one of the hottest buzzwords in strategy meetings today. I want us to talk a little bit about, though, I'm curious about your take on the difference between community and audience. And
Mhm.
how do you go about defining real community?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, it's really directional. When we're thinking about community, it can go in multiple directions. It can be from the brand or the company to the company to the community members, but also it can go from member to member. It's very much a handoff where the brand or company gets to be a part of it, but they aren't necessarily the sole core of it. They aren't the center. Whereas when we're thinking about audience, we're thinking about like traditional distribution. We're thinking about I'm talking to you, and whether or not you respond or you talk back is irrelevant. It's more about how I am controlling that conversation. And sometimes it's not even a conversation. It's here, look at this, or here, do this, or here's our latest. Whereas when we're thinking about community now, what you're doing is you're finding opportunities for people that have a shared love, a shared hatred, a shared something where they're able to come together. They're able to talk to whoever is like the quote unquote owner of that thing. Like Disney's a great example. Um, the hash flags that are created whenever there is a Disney movie or a Marvel movie that comes out is such a really great opportunity to really infuse community, because what you're doing is, yes, it's a promotional tool. Yes, it can trend. But what you're doing is you're giving them an asset so that they can join the conversation. You're giving them the door. You're saying, you want to be a part of this conversation. You want to showcase your feelings on this. You want to be able to connect with others who are talking about this and who are passionate. Use this hash flag, use this hashtag with a cute little emoji at the end. And it's going to essentially act as a gateway for you to connect. And so when I'm thinking about community, I'm thinking about where are the doors? How can they come together? What are those entry points? And then once they're in, what does that experience look like?
And that's where I think we're going to get into some really interesting things here in this conversation today. So before we jump into that, give us a little bit about your background prior to HubSpot, because I do think you've bounced around to some really interesting initiatives and done some cool experiments. So give us high level, a little bit of background that helped you get to where you are right now, leading community for HubSpot.
Absolutely. So I'm a bit of a polymath. So I was an English major in college, and then I taught math for 5 years, was a stay-at-home mother, and then I was able to do career advancement for a technical university. So I was actually teaching people how to use social media in the proper way. It wasn't as Wild West as it is now, where I was teaching people in the times where like a red Solo cup and a picture of yours could get you fired. We are past those days,
Very, yeah, very
thankfully.
far past those.
We are very far past those days, but that was around the time where it's like, you need to do a social audit, and you're doing a social audit for your personal brand so that when you're being hired and being considered for positions, you need to really kind of look at it from a lens of what your employer would think if they were seeing what you were writing, the kind of pictures that you were sharing, the kind of how are you presenting yourself across these channels. And then also worked at a art museum where I was an advancement coordinator. So I was working in a lot of spreadsheets and blackball databases to determine like who are the richest people in our neighborhoods, what do they love, what would they want to donate to. So I'm having to essentially act as like a finance sniper. Like, who do we want to target? Who do we want to make feel special? Who do we want to invite to a VIP event? How do we talk to them? How do I thank them? How do I invite them? What does that look like? And then I started taking over their Twitter and Facebook account because a colleague wanted to do Instagram, and
Hmm.
that was not my bag. It's still not my bag. Much rather prefer copy over that. And so really had to kind of infuse community there as well. Whereas at the tech school, they didn't have an alumni program. I created a LinkedIn program and group so alumni could connect and really kind of learn from each other and grow and help each other. But then at the museum, um, I live in Southwest Virginia at an area that is incredibly traditional Southern, brick everywhere downtown. And the art museum is this like sweeping metal roof and all glass windows and very much counter to like
Hmm.
the downtown aesthetic. And so it wasn't beloved. And so when I took over the Twitter and Facebook account, I really came from a place of, well, you don't have to love us, but we can show that we love this area, that we can show that we love this community. So instead of just sharing the content that we want to share for us, that we want to promote, that we want to share, we also need to make sure that we are a champion for this community so that it is undeniable that we belong. It is undeniable that we are invested. And so over time, it really shifted that sentiment for us. Um, and at the end of the day, if anything's gonna piss you off, an art museum should be what pisses you off. It should be other. It should be different. It should make you think. Um, and so did that, and then have worked in marketing. I found marketing because of HubSpot Academy, and really have loved the inbound methodology of value first, and I find that that is so crucial to community. It very much is inbound. It very much is, how can I give more than I take? How can I give you things knowing full well that I may not see ROI on it? I might not see return, but it's worth it. And what does that look like? So I think that thread of constantly trying to connect to others, constantly trying to make people feel appreciated and special has kind of been this like constant thread that runs through all of my work.
I was just going to say, from teaching to looking at the neighborhood and figuring out how do we make those people feel special to the art museum, that thread of making people feel special, providing value, and giving more than you take does seem to be the common thread throughout all your different stops. And
Yeah.
I do think from like a sports team perspective, where again, this is our whole bread and butter that we
Yeah.
play in. Like,
Yeah.
and I think a lot of big brands make this mistake as well of just saying, "Hey, we're an entertainment company, so we need to constantly be entertaining and putting out what we need to be putting out." Instead of saying, "Let's look at the fan first or the customer first and have
Yeah.
everything derive around that." Uh, and there was an interesting take that I heard. I think it was earlier this week. I was listening to Gary Vee. Sometimes rubs me the wrong way, but sometimes he's great.
Yeah.
And
It's
I'm
gold
curious,
or it's
what's
repetitive. It's
yeah,
gold or
what's okay,
repetitive.
yeah. Give me your what's your quick take on Gary.
I think he's the litmus test for marketing graduation. I think he's incredibly passionate in what he says. And I think that when you are starting marketing, he is an incredible person to look into because he does talk about table stakes and like the root things that you need to do.
For
Um,
sure.
but I do think that you can tell when you've been in marketing long enough because when he starts to sound too repetitive,
Yep.
you know you're doing the work. You know that you've outgrown him. So I do think he has a place. I'm not a hater.
Agreed. Agreed.
But I do think that how you feel about him is like the litmus test in marketing. Like, you've been in the trenches and you've done the work when you're like, "Gary, like, I'm fine. Like, just I'm fine. Like, I get
I
it."
I got it. I got it. I need to be posting every day. Got it.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it was an interesting day because he was talking about the NFT and all the
Yeah.
work that he's doing there, and he was talking about how he's always give 51, take 49,
Mhm.
and whatever we do with that 49, just making sure that we steward the little that we get
Mhm.
back
Yes.
and do it really well, right? And I think that is really applicable to all the work that you're doing with HubSpot and
Yeah.
HubFans. So,
And I
well,
think
let
I
go ahead.
sorry, I was gonna say, I do
You're good.
think that what he's doing with the NFT space, he's known for being one of those primary initial thought leaders that he loves finding what's new. He loves and capitalizing on it. I will say though, a lot of people talk about NFTs and they use community as a buzzword, and I find that they go through the motions and they don't catapult it correctly. But I think that Gary Vee and what he's done with VFriends and the NFT community is proof that community counts. Because if literally anyone else had done the exact same pieces of art, the exact same, it would have been nothing. Like those things
Totally.
sold because he is Gary Vee. Those things sold because they're attached to him and the community that is attached to him. And so I think that it's very easy to look at that and be like, "You're doing this because only you could do it that way." But I think it's better to look at it from a perspective of he has the community, he's built that over time, and that's what facilitated that. Like, that's what made that possible. So, like I said, I'm not a hater. I think there's definitely a place for him, and he's definitely one of those, first people on deck. Like, he makes sure that he's always, one of the first people on deck. But, selling millions and millions of those things, getting millions of dollars from that, and it launching so quickly, the ones that are doing that successfully, they have community already, they've
Completely.
nailed the community first, and not in a tag 3 people and you could win this. Like, that's not community. That's
That's
spam.
audience. That's audience at
That's
that
all.
point,
That's not community, but the ones who've done well, if you look at, Bored Ape Yacht Club, it's a community.
for
It's
sure.
they they feel a sense of ownership, they wanna connect with people, they not only do things like they live in the DMs and they wanna help each other and, "Hey, I'm a former," and it's very much like what the country club was, 30 years ago, is what these NFT communities are. You're paying for access, but that access grants you a level of clout, a level of accessibility to people that you would have never had, opportunities to have those connections with otherwise. And I think if you look at it from that lens, it makes sense why people are excited about this. It makes sense yes, it's a piece of art. Yes, it's non-fungible. Yes, you think it's stupid and you can right click on it. It's the stuff that comes with it. It's not the country club, it's the people in that country club.
Right.
It's it's what you are actually buying access to. And I think if more people in the NFT space or outside of the NFT space look at it from that lens, it'll make more sense to them.
Totally. And I think every community is a little bit different. And this is where we'll get into this too.
Yeah.
Um, I'm part of the Artifact CloneX group. I've got a couple of those, and it's super 3D creators. I mean, it is just
Yeah.
tutorials on everybody helping each other create stuff. But it's just it's different. I do want to hit on one thing though that you hit on, and I think this is going to take us into Hub fans a little bit.
Yeah.
Is Gary, as we were talking about it, was ranting about, and you touched on this. He had that community. Had anybody else launched that project, it would not have been successful. But that
No.
community was a long play. He's built that up over the
Mhm.
last 15 years. And I think
Yeah.
that's where a lot of people make this mistake too, is they think, oh, well, I can create community really fast, or I can say that I'm going to start to create a community and it's going to have an immediate payoff. He's seeing those long-term impacts and those long-term benefits now, but he's been building this for years. It's not something that you can do overnight. So I'm curious as to how you guys have approached it how
Yeah.
you're approaching it from a long-term view at HubSpot of
Mhm.
creating community with Hub fans. Talk to us a little bit about the program and what
Yeah.
that long-term investment looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So HubFans is a program. It's specifically for our top advocates, our biggest customers and partners who absolutely love us and are knowledgeable. And because, like you said, HubSpot has a very similar rotation. We've been customer centric from the very beginning. And because of that, you are with every day, with every service call you take, with every sales call, with every time you're talking to the customer, you are building that relationship. And as you connect those customers to other people, whether it be at events like Inbound or Grow, or you're having them be in the HubSpot community as a whole to help answer questions for each other. What you are doing is you're essentially creating like a brain with all these synapses that get to work together, and together you're able to create really beautiful things. So HubFans has been a real joy because it's not necessarily me having to ask people to behave in a certain way or to love us in a certain way. They already do that. What I get to do is provide opportunities and see how we can harness it in a more impactful way. You love us. How can I help? How can I find opportunities for you to love us in a way where we're going to be able to feature you? We're going to be able to amplify you. We're going to have to be able to make you feel special. And you get to be the subject matter expert. I created Maslow has like a hierarchy of needs, and I've created kind of like the community version, but for delight. And there's very much like you go all the way to survival at the very bottom, which is very much like you meet expectation. Like you didn't wow me, but like you did what I paid you to do. You
Okay.
have to get that right. And then you're able to scale up. And I find that a lot of brands go about halfway up the pyramid, which is they get to that love and belonging stage where they're like, here's a forum and here is a hoodie. And like, see, we're done. Like, we love you. See, that's great. And that's fine. But you have other levels. So you have esteem, you have self-actualization. So the brands that I find that are incredibly impactful, they're ones that are really turning the camera around and putting it on the customers. And we have a lot of marketers, myself included, who would tell you that you need to make the customer the hero, but then you have to actually do that. Um,
Wait. Okay. Go
yeah,
ahead.
go
Go
ahead.
ahead. I'm gonna
Um,
ask. I want to ask more about this pyramid, and I wish we
yeah,
could get a graphic up and see
yeah,
it. But like, what are all the levels that you got in your pyramid?
yeah. So let me pull it up. Okay. So I did a presentation for Rutgers and for their graduate social media class, and specifically talking about social media from a lens of community, because I find that that's where a lot of brands go first because the infrastructure is already in place. You're not having to like rebuild the wheel. And so what you have here is these opportunities for people to like, what does this look like? So we have that survival, you meet expectations, you do what you said you would do. Safety, if something happens, no matter how great your product is, there's going to be days where something happens, like something goes wrong, like you don't know what's going to happen next. So when we're looking at that, it's incredibly important to figure out that you're going to have customer support in hand, ready to go. You have CSMs that you are going to make sure that are in place, answer questions. How can we resolve your problems? You're good to go. Then you have that love and belonging, where you're gonna need to do swag, maybe start doing those initial plays of community where maybe there's a Slack channel or maybe there is a opportunity to connect with others, whatever that looks like. But this is usually where brands stop. They'll send you a hoodie, they'll send you a hat, they'll send you a Yeti cup with the logo. And then they'll give you a place where you can connect with others. But that's usually where it stops. Above that is where you see the beauty. Like, that's where the magic lies because that's where you're taking steps to truly create these, like, core memories, where people feel like they are the hero, and it could be behind the scenes access, it could be they get to meet with leadership, they get to be beta testers, they get to be VIPs at specific events, whatever that looks like. And then you have at the top of the pyramid that self actualization, which is basically now they're the experts. You've given them the resources so that if they are with your brand or company, now they are the key people. Fandom, when we look at it from a sports lens, usually the closest they get to, like the only way that we see that self actualization is they might be shown on like the jumbo screen
Hmm.
or they might be in a hype video. And let me stop sharing. But what I found is I'm a massive Virginia Tech fan, and we've had a long road. We have a new coaching staff that I'm incredibly proud of, and I'm very happy. But I wrote a couple threads last year, in the last year Fuente to basically talk about how like a lot of the issues we're seeing are from a PR and comms perspective. Like, how could you fix that? And so much of it was they weren't looking at it from a fan's perspective. We were closed off. We didn't have access.
Mm.
They'd create these like super sharp hype videos, and I'm like, I don't care.
We
Like, show me the hokey bird hugging a 10-year-old, and I will buy you. Like, I will give you my credit card. But like, this isn't working. And so I found that like the Twitter account, I was on a couple podcasts last year talking about it, and they asked me like, "What did you think of the Hokey Twitter account?" And I said, it's wearing a tie, like it's very dry, it's very suited up. I want someone to run the account, and it has been fixed now. Like they listen to all of my things. Like the new coaching staff is amazing. We have access, we have spring games, we have tours, alumni are welcome back. Like it's complete revert, like complete turnaround. But what you see is it's those top pieces, that behind the scenes access, where I get to see how passionate the coaches are when they're talking to recruits on sign day. Like, and you can't fake that. I don't want to see a hype video. I want it raw. I want phone footage. I want to see you like pump in the air, potentially cussing. Like, I want to see you hyped. Like, I want to see
Right.
like I don't want polished passion. Polished passion seems fake to me. I want raw. And then I want to know that I have access to that, that I can see what's going on, that I can see who you're talking to. And so those top pieces, like, especially from, like, a sports perspective, that's the gold right there. That's the stuff that also always performs better on social. Anytime you have, like, an athlete that's, like, giving their jersey to a fan, it's like a little kid, or they make sure that, like, the little kid gets the baseball that they dropped, those always perform well, and there's a reason for that. It's because you've put the fans into the story. The fans are just as important, and we see this, like, obviously at Lane Stadium for Virginia Tech, we play Enter Sandman, and we're jumping, and it's one of the biggest experiences, and so for me, it was really hard for the fans to feel so distant when it's like, we literally make the earth shake for you. Like, we are a part of this whether you like us or not. Like, we hit the Richter scale. Like, listen to us. Like, we want to be passionate. We want to win these games. And we want to be a core part of that. And for any brand, it's the same way. I'll give you a great example. Um, there was a picture of a little boy, and I know you said you're Disney, so I'm gonna pick on you a bit.
Let's do it.
Um, Encanto. And there's
Okay.
that little boy who saw another character that looked like him, who was this little cute little black boy, and he saw a character that looked exactly like him. And for him, that was a seat at the table. He was in a Disney film. Like, he was in a movie that you did. And so we are always looking for, either from a community perspective or from an entertainment perspective, but just the core sense of belonging is, I want to see myself somewhere. And so if you were giving the opportunity for your fans to be like, that's me, that's priceless. That creates such a fostering of love that you can't create or purchase in any capacity. And those things always perform well. That's why representation matters. That's why making sure that you're looking at your fan base and saying, like, how can I make them closer? Because the closer they feel to you, the more invested they'll be, the more money they'll give you, the louder they will be, the more they'll share your content, because now it's their team. It's my team. I want them to be successful. If they lose, they're pissed, I'm pissed. Their weekend's ruined, my weekend's ruined. Like, they're already invested. So how can you foster that relationship so that they love you more, so that they want to be loud for you. They want to be advocates for you. They want to go in and do the rituals. They want to wear the jerseys. They want to wear the hats. They're going to be superstitious and not shave until you win. Like, they're going to do all of those things. And in sports specifically, it already has this ritualistic kind of cultish community vibe anyway. It's so easy to light that on fire. Like, it's so easy to be like, let's take this to another level. And so when you're looking at it from like a sports perspective, from a brand perspective, see what they already love and be like, how can I ignite that? Like, how can I just like pour gasoline all over that? And it really comes down to core memories. How can I create a core memory for someone? They remember that baseball game they went to with their dad when they were like 7. They remember like they got to catch like the foul ball was given to them like after a game, or they got to see like they got to meet their favorite athlete, whatever that looks like. But if you can figure out like what would a core memory look like for your fans, and you can harness that on like a one-to-one and then see if you can scale it, oh, that's magic. Like, that's magic.
This is, I mean, this is so good. I mean, we I mean, one, we got to get you connected with our boy Brad Worthman out at Virginia Tech. Do you know Brad?
Yeah, I do. Yes.
Okay, cool, cool. So
And they're
so
doing a
Brad's
great job. I do want to let them know, like, they've turned the ship around, and I am very pleased. But like, there was a while I was like, please, like, I will work for free. Just like, let me help you for like 5 minutes.
we'll shout him out in here. He's been on the podcast. He's a good friend of the of engagement in the show. But let's talk about how you're applying this into HubSpot. So you
Yeah.
got, I mean, I want to talk about too, like categorization of fans, but I mean, real quick, just on what everything that you were just saying. I think
Yeah.
with sports, right, and as we talk more about what HubSpot's doing, with sports, you already have that community, you already have that cultish following. you just got to do a little bit more to light it on fire. And
Yeah.
I think where we see it is a lot of teams take for granted that they have this
Yeah.
community. They take for granted that no matter what happens, fans are going to line up and they're going to be there. And that might be true in a lot of senses. You don't have to do that much to get that big following, but do a little bit more and you can 10x the passion and
Yep.
10x the revenue and the share of heart and the share of wallet. And it's
100%.
it's not that hard because it's already there, but don't just rest on your laurels. Like,
Yeah.
get into it, pour a little bit of love on it, and you'll get there.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
a lot harder to do for a CRM software and
Yes.
marketing platform. So talk to us about how you're doing it at HubSpot with HubSpans. I know you've got different categorizations of them: rising fans, super fans. You're
Mhm.
using gamification principles. Talk to us
Yeah.
about how you're growing the program and how you're really getting people to that next level in your pyramid.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done gamification in the past. It was a previous program around like 2016, 2017 called HubStars. We wanted to bring it back, and I wanted there to be a gamification and a community piece. I didn't want it to be just one or the other because gamification's great, but it doesn't work for everybody. Some people are like Pokemon; they want to catch them all. Others think it's stupid. Or some like I'm only going to do it if I can win. If I can't win and be like number one on the leaderboard, like I don't care. And so you need other entry points for them to be able to feel like they can celebrate and be celebrated. And so we have over 21,000 people currently in our gamification. We have over 11,000 completed challenges. We have over 2,500 active advocates, which means they're actively taking challenges. They're actively talking about us online. They are sharing our content on social. And so what we've done is instead of it being transactional where you get these points and now you can trade them in for like a cup or like I do love swag. I don't want to hate on swag, but it's foundational. It's not how you give love. It's like you can give someone certain like you can give someone a hoodie, and if you keep giving them hoodies, only that first hoodie felt special. And so you need to get them closer and closer to the table, or if you're just going to rely on swag, you need to scale up because the serotonin and dopamine they get is not the same each successive time. And so what we've done instead is we've really kind of opened up the door. So basically, with every successive tier, you're getting more and more private access. You're getting closer and closer to the inner sanctum, I guess, at HubSpot. You're getting closer and closer to opportunities, talk to leadership, go to private events, whatever that looks like. And you're getting opportunities that you wouldn't normally get otherwise. So, for example, last year I created two programs called the Inbound Correspondents and the After Hour Show with George P. Thomas. The inbound correspondents were people who got to be subject matter experts at inbound. They got to go to sessions, tell you what was important, share their opinions on what was shared, how they would handle these takeaways. They really got to give you like an expert lens. So imagine if you had like a sales expert that was sitting right beside you in a session and was basically like whispering in your ear the whole time, like, oh, that's gold. That's great. This is what I would do with that. That's kind
Yeah.
of what you have with the correspondents. And now they get to be seen that self-actualization, they are subject matter experts. They are the star. They are the reason why if you didn't get to go to a session or you did, but maybe didn't understand like why it was important or how to implement things, they're going to be there to help communicate that with you. We had over 1,200 pieces of content that were shared by our correspondents last year during three
Holy
days.
cow. Wow. It's
Um,
3 days. Wow.
3 days. 3 days. So we had that. And so it also flooded a lot of the social. So you have a lot of this positive sentiment flooding in. A lot of people are getting FOMO now because they're not at inbound. We had a lot of people who were buying tickets the last day because they had seen like all of the conversations that we're having, like, I can't miss this.
And
And then,
Inbound is this conference that you guys are putting on,
yes,
right? Or, yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
yes, yeah, it's a conference we do every year. But because of that, there's all these opportunities. So I'm monitoring all the conversations. I'm using my personal Twitter and I'm retweeting everything that I'm finding from our correspondents. Twitter cut me off twice, like 2 out of the 3 days, basically said like, you've retweeted too much. You can't tweet anymore.
You're
Um,
spamming at this point, but you weren't.
yeah, just like, what are
You're
you
like, I'm
doing? I'm
engaging.
like, I'm amplifying people. So all of these opportunities. So what we're doing is we're really kind of owning those conversations in a really positive light. We're educating others. We're showcasing what's possible. And it's about the speakers and it's about the correspondence. So it's not about HubSpot. It's about we've given them the stage and now they really get to flex. They really get to show what they know, which is incredibly important. And so those kind of opportunities are incredibly special. Like one of our top tier, our HubFans Council, I'm constantly looking for opportunities to highlight them. So one was we had HubSpot Academy was updating the Facebook certification course. And one of our HubFans Council members does freelance Facebook marketing. She's a pro. She's been doing it for years. And so when they asked me if I had anyone that I thought would be a good fit to feature, I was like, her, pick her. And so she got to be a part of it. She got to be interviewed. And so when it was published, she's sharing it, but she's sharing it as in like, this is the career highlight of my life. This is like something I
That's
never
incredible.
thought I could do. That's a core memory. That's someone who's like, and that's the thing is like, how can I make you feel special? And then how can I make you feel something that like, I could have only gotten this experience because I'm an advocate of HubSpot. I could have only gotten this
Mm,
opportunity because I love them and they love me back. And that is incredibly powerful. And so when I'm looking at opportunities or I'm working with internal teams, I'm constantly trying to figure out like, how can I take an internal need and turn it into an external opportunity? How can we make this alignment so that I'm able to take care of the department needs at HubSpot, but more importantly, I'm able to make sure that like who's going to be the star of this? Who gets to be the winner? Who gets to do this? It's them. It's them. I get to be a fan of the fans to make sure that they're taken care of, that they're happy, that they're getting to do things that they never would be able to do otherwise.
I love that line of how can we take an internal need and kind of, yeah, what's the way you phrase it? How do we take an
And
internal need and
and
amplify
turn
it
it into
externally?
it and turn it into an external opportunity.
Yeah, I love that framework for being able to think about things in terms of how do we engage our fans. We're not just engaging fans for fans' sake. We're doing it because it makes sense from a business perspective in multiple different ways.
Yeah.
Well, talk to us a little bit more about the program. And I mean, one of the things that caught my eye is like, and you've said it, is challenges, competing
Mhm.
challenges. How are Hub fans create? How are they solving challenges? What are these challenges that you're talking about?
Yeah, so the challenges that we've created, they have different properties. So just as in like gamification isn't for everybody, all the challenges aren't for everybody either. So we've made it so that you can filter to find out what kind of stuff you want. So for example, let's say that you hate social media. If I ask you to share stuff, you're not going to raise your hand. You'll be like, no, that's not for me. And that doesn't mean you don't want to advocate for us. It means you don't want to advocate for us in that way. And so I try to make sure that there's a variety of opportunities. Sometimes it's just like, check out this new feature video. Sometimes it's share a new brand campaign on social. Sometimes it's why did you switch to HubSpot in the first place? Can you give us like one or two sentences about like what made you change, like made you make that decision? Or it could be, what's your customer story? How have you used HubSpot to improve something? What did that look like? It could be, do you want to be involved in, are you involved in external communities and you represent us in communities that we may not even know exist? And you want to make sure that you get credit for that. Like, you're like, hey, I'm loving you over here. This isn't an option, but like, I'm doing that. Is that something that I can be rewarded for? It could be that I want you to sign up for a webinar that's coming up that you may not know about, or there could be groups in the community that have been created that you would love to be a part of, but you haven't seen it for whatever reason. So it's an opportunity to basically talk to all of our top fans in one central place. And then they can choose what they want to be a part of. Do you want to be a part of the reference pool? Do you want to be a part of a hug group? Do you want to attend an event? Do you want to share something for us? Do you want to just go in and see like what are the new features? Like you don't have to share it, you don't have to do anything. It's for you to educate yourself. So creating this variety so that people really get to do what's important to them is incredibly special to us.
Oh, I mean, I love this, and I'm thinking about all of the different applications from a sports team side of things. And
Mhm.
again, I think on the sports side of things, we get so narrowed into what is our core product. Our core product is selling tickets, and we'll
Right.
attach memberships to those tickets, as opposed to
Mhm.
saying, I think now when we think about fandom, it has evolved in such a different way where I might be a really diehard Virginia Tech fan, but I live across the country in California, so I'm probably never going to come to a game. So in your mind, because you're looking at it from a traditional sense, I'm not one of your core fans, despite the fact that I'm wearing Virginia Tech gear all the time.
Yep.
I'm talking about it with my friends. My neighbor whose son or daughter is going to college, I'm hyping up Virginia Tech, right? How am I getting rewarded? The reality is, if you've got a traditional program for engaging your fans and for your customers, you're not tapping into that and you're not getting
Nope.
rewarded for that. And that's where I
Yeah.
think I would challenge all of our listeners to be thinking about it in the way that Christina, you're thinking about it
Mhm.
from a CR or from a marketing platform tool
Yeah.
perspective.
Yeah.
Uh, I love it.
And
Well, let
I think
go ahead.
yeah, sorry. I was gonna
No,
say,
no, you go.
I think that also because COVID's kind of opening or starting to open everything up after COVID again, I think that sports teams also they need to understand that experiences for fans need to be hybrid now. We've adapted to it, and like you said, that was a great example. There are some people who might live on the other side of the country, but that does not mean that they love that team any less. Does it mean that they wanna give that team any less money? Maybe they just need another like a different opportunity to be a part of it. One of the things that I've pushed this into the universe so many times, and I would love to do it, is you have athletes who are all working out. Every single one of them is working out. If you have one Peloton, like one single Peloton in your gym, find out whichever athlete loves that Peloton and is known to your audience, and then schedule maybe weekly or monthly runs where you get to do a class with your favorite athlete. You get to be on the leaderboard with your favorite athlete. It will literally cost you nothing. You just have to put it on Twitter, put it on your Facebook page. You would literally just have to promote it and be like, "Hey, do you want to run with me? I'm doing this class at this time. Sign up for this class." And anyone that has Peloton or anyone that even just has the app that wants to participate would be able to be a part of that. And then you get to see if you can outrun your athlete. What other opportunity are you going to be able to globally try to outrun an athlete? It just makes so much sense to me.
It does.
And
It
so
does.
finding opportunities to have those, like, intimate opportunities, so maybe it's like a Zoom call, with select people. I think it's incredibly important to find out, how do people wanna connect with your athletes? How do they wanna connect with your coach? I think that that's incredibly important. It also bothers me when a lot of, like, post-press conferences are only available to the press, they're not available to
Mm,
everyone. That's
yep.
such an easy lift. So many of your passionate fans, whether they give you $1 or $1,000,000, they wanna see it. They wanna be a part of it. You could also even have, like, opportunities where, like, if you're the fan of the week, you get to ask a question during one of the press conferences. Like, there's so many things that would cost you absolutely nothing, but would buy you a fan for life.
You could do a fans only press conference
Yes.
and charge money for it and monetize it, right? I mean,
Yes.
if you put
Yes.
the
There's
fan
so
first,
many.
you can
Yes.
do a lot of different ideas from it.
Yeah.
So
If and
go
that's the
ahead.
thing is if you really look at it from a fan perspective, and I think that that's like you said previously, I think that they take it for granted. I don't think they do it on purpose. Like, I don't think they're just like, "Ha ha, screw them. We'll take your money. We don't care." I
For
don't
sure.
think that's it. But I do think that they forget because they know what it's like to be on the inside for so long that they forget what it's like to love from the outside. And so I need you to have, like, an external lens to be like, "I love this team so much. How could I be closer?" And then how can you provide those opportunities to be closer? What does that look like? And a lot of times, like, it's really low cost. It's just you have to plan it. And so there's opportunities to do that. There's opportunities for you to find the time to figure out how can we create these bigger connections because they want to be like the love's there. They just want to be closer. So how can you make them closer? How can you create those core memories with them so that they're gonna talk about that. Like, they're gonna talk about, like, "I was running and I almost beat him," even if they didn't.
Right.
They're gonna say, like, "Well, they answered my question at a press conference," or they want to feel closer. And so, the closer they feel, the more ownership they have, the more protective they will be, the more money they will spend, the more invested they will become. What you're doing is you are using emotion to trigger behavior. So you got to figure out what behavior you want, what emotions would make someone want to behave that way, and then figure out how can we and then just reverse engineer. What kind of things would create that emotional impact? What kind of things would make them feel that way about us? And that's going to create that behavior pipeline you want.
We're gonna have so many clips here that it's gonna be great that are just super relevant. So one thing I want to hit on that you've talked about breaking out of this internal mindset, getting into the external side of things, remembering what it's like to be a fan and understanding what that person wants, what that fan or customer wants. So, what are your favorite methods for kind of understanding your audience and segments within a community?
I'm a massive fan of social listening. I social listen all the time. I'm intrinsically
T-
curious, so I do
tell
it.
me, tell me,
I
tell
do.
me more about the social listening. Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah. So you can use tools for it. You can also do native Twitter because it's pretty open API and because a lot of people talk openly there. It's usually a really easy way to figure out how people are talking about your brand. So going in there, a lot of social media teams, because they don't have the time to do otherwise, they'll really focus on where they're at, like where they're mentioned specifically. A lot of the gold, though, is where they're not mentioned, where there isn't a hashtag specifically used, where they're talking about your brand, but they didn't at you, so you didn't see it unless you do social listening or unless you're tagged like further along the way. But those are the times where they don't care if you see them. They're going to talk more candidly because they're not so angry they want you to fix it, or they're not so happy they want you to give them swag. It's that middle ground where they're just talking about you, knowing full well you probably don't hear them. There's so much gold there. You're going to get to hear like how they feel about you, what kind of language they use when they talk about you, or is there a certain type of fan that speaks one way versus another? Is there a certain way that they associate themselves with you? Do they behave certain ways? Are they preparing for the game in a certain way? Um, Things like that are incredibly, incredibly powerful. So, great example of this. When Virginia Tech was going on a run and the ACC tournament, a well-known Virginia Tech fan, Clark, was eating Taco Bell after every single win, and that was his superstitious, like, "We're gonna keep going. Like, this is a sacrifice I'm making for us to keep winning." And I don't know if they did anything, but it would have been so cute if, like, Tech had sent him, like, tacos or had sent him something Taco Bell related to basically say, like, "You were our taco hero, like, you helped us, like, our taco guy." Like, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah,
something that you would have gleaned just from paying attention and then just having this, like, tiny little moment of, like, "We see you." Chewy does a really great job of this.
the
Chewy is,
best.
like, second to none, like, just elite level of customer care. If there's been times where people have, like, canceled their subscription because their pets died, they sent flowers.
Oh yeah.
Like, that's a $30 bouquet, but that person is a Chewy fan for life. It's those little moments that just show empathy and show care, and so I just try to think about, like, when you're seeing how people talk about you and you're seeing the experiences that they're having with you, it's so easy to think, "All right, like, all right, this is how they feel. This is what they're doing. This is really cute. This is really special. How can we engage in a really thoughtful way? How can we be a part of this?" And then what's beautiful is you don't push it. Like, you don't put it on press. You don't say like, "Hey, we sent them this." Like, you assume,
Let
like,
the conversation go.
let it go, and then 9 times out of 10, what will happen is the person who you did that for will put it on social and be like, "Isn't this the sweetest?" They'll promote it for you so it doesn't look promotional on your end, and then you just write back, like, a little, like, heart emojis and be like, "We appreciate you." Like, done. Done. It's just it's those little things, and it's like that with all relationships. Like, if you're married or if you're dating somebody, when you think about, like, how you care about somebody, it's never those, like, massive, grandiose things. It's those little moments. It's they always get me my favorite drink when we go somewhere, or they always do this when it rains, or it's always those little tiny memory moments. And if you can figure out, like, how could we do that? Like, what are the little moments that say, "We love you back?" That's
The
what's really powerful.
the way we always talk about it is like it's not the extra mile, it's the extra inch. And doing that
Yes.
time
Yes.
and time again adds up. And like the way we would think about it when I was at Disney was always like it's not about the big wows. Big wows are great. But for the most part is can I add up a series of can I
Yep.
elicit that sound from my customer? Wasn't expecting that. If you could do that a bunch of times in the course of an
Yeah.
experience, it's going to add up to that big wow that they rave about.
It
Okay,
really
wait,
is.
going back to this. So understanding audience segments, we talked about
Mhm.
social listening and I cut you off. What else were you going
Yeah.
to say around favorite methods for understanding audience and segments within your?
I find it incredibly important to talk to them directly. They want to hear, they want to give you their voice. I mean, that's why social is so pervasive, is because It's democratized the power of voice. And so now anyone can speak into the void and hopefully someone will hear them. It's the same thing with your customers and partners and your fans. They want to be heard. So if you have ever wondered, like, what should we do next? Ask them. They will not only tell you what they love, what they hate, they'll probably give you solutions. They'll give you ideas. There is such a lost treasure trove of ideas that brands could hold on to that are sitting in the brains of their customers. They're like, this is the problem. This is exactly how I would fix it. So that's R&D you don't have to pay for. It's market research you don't have to pay for. It's all these opportunities to go straight to the horse's mouth to say, all right, you love us. What would you change?
Yeah.
What would you do differently? How could this be better for you? Where are the gaps? How could we improve this experience for you? And they will tell you. Sometimes if they love you a lot, they'll like preface. They're like, I don't hate you. Like, I'm not mad, but like I would, and you have to draw that out. But that's still great. And those negative, like anything negative you see, I find is also the gold. That's where the gap opportunity lies. Because if someone says, oh, I love everything, like, thank you. But I can't action on that. Like, I can't action on like, it's perfect. I'm like, cool. I can't optimize perfect. But if you tell me something that you don't like, okay, I can work with that. I can figure out like what's doable. How can we optimize that? How can we improve it? So constantly thinking about where the negative is, that's where like, and I think a lot of fandoms and get a bad rap for this is they come across as trolls and negative, but what they're telling you is what needs to be fixed. And if you don't listen to that and you call them trolls, you're literally taking the most powerful, passionate people you have and saying, let's turn this love into hate. Let's see how that goes. And that never works out.
Well, and again,
Ever.
some of the best sports teams understand that, and some of the, let's say, not great performing sports teams, they confuse that, and they've got senior leaders at the top who they just want to hear all the good things, and
Yeah.
it creates a culture going down where it's like people are afraid to take risks because they don't want to ask that question in a survey, they don't want to make that post on social because they're losing, and so when it's not fun, right? They don't want to post something fun when they're losing because they're going to get bad feedback from it. And it's like, guys, we got to put it out into the world. We got to ask that question that we know we're going to get bad rap on. We know people are going to come back and complain about parking or digital tickets or whatever it might be, but we need that feedback so that we can get better. And if we're interested in getting better, let's ask the question. If we want to just keep the
Yeah.
status quo, we don't need to ask anything. But
Agreed. Completely agree.
you're going to die if that's the case. So, all right. Well, one thing I want to talk about too, when we're talking about this troll, this army, if you will. I mean, you guys use a lot of user generated content. So
Yeah.
how would you advise people listening who are afraid of relinquishing some of that brand control to the army of customers that they have out there? I mean, how do you think about user generated content when you think about building?
I love user generated content for multiple reasons. I find that it's an easy lift for creative. So your in-house team doesn't have to do as much. It provides an opportunity for you to highlight essentially like visual case studies of your product or service. Like you're able to essentially show it in the wild, which is incredibly important for brands to do. And I think over time, people realize what it looks like. So if you're starting to use UGC, what you're also doing, whether you realize it or not, is you are signaling what someone could do in order to get approached by you. So they want these kind of pictures, they want these kind of captions, they want this kind of view from product use, they want this kind of lighting, they want things like this. So it's incredibly important to kind of go from that perspective. When I was at an agency, one of the companies that I worked for was a car manufacturer. And so they every like once a week, they would do a post specifically on Instagram highlighting one of like their diehard customers' cars. And so it was some of the best visuals we had because it was polished in like an individual way, like the lighting was crisp and everything, but it wasn't flashy um in a sense of like look what our like web design team can do. It was very much like the car was the highlight. And so people would go and would specifically travel to these really beautiful locales so that they had not only this like beautiful car, but now they had this like incredible nature shot behind it. And so like some of the most beautiful cars I've ever seen were actually captured not from the company materials, which were safer, and a little bit more conservative. What
For
it
sure.
was is it was from the fans. It was from the fans literally being like, "Look at my baby." And then they got to see that this brand was using it on their car, on their Instagram, and so now, like, they will only buy that type of car for the rest of their life. Like,
It's a core
it's
memory, right? Like,
yeah, it's a core memory, like, that's my baby, and the people who made my baby just, like, put my baby on their Instagram page. And so they're telling everybody, and that's also why UGC does really well. If you get featured, you're gonna tell every single person you can get a hold of. You're gonna share it.
no doubt.
You're gonna be so proud. Like, if you want a quick organic lift, find someone that has really, like, not amazing, but, like, really strong, decent following, and then find a picture that will work or some UGC that they've done that is really, like, representative of the brand. Ask if you can use it. That's another problem. A lot of brands think they can just use it without permission. Get permission. And then tell them how it's gonna be highlighted. Let them know when it's published, and then let them do the work. They'll lift that organic for you. You don't have to play with the algorithm when you're highlighting fans who will make sure it gets seen.
I love that. Well, as we're coming to a close here, how can people find out more about HubSpot and HubFans? And also, I would say engagement. We use HubSpot. We love it. It's
Yay!
great for being able
Good.
to see who's opening emails, keeping track of
Yep.
pipeline deals and whatnot.
Yeah.
Albeit we're on the free version, we just don't have as.
It's okay.
We love it though, nonetheless. So where can people find out more about HubSpot, HubFans, and what you're doing?
Yeah. Join the HubSpot community. If you go to community.hubspot.com, you'll see all of our multiple groups there. There's an advocacy tab in the top that you'd be able to click on, and you'll see that we have our gamification, which is our HubFans program gamified. You'll see the HubFans and HubFans Council community groups that we have. But we also have an advocacy blog that we've created. So that self-actualization piece where we have a blog where all of our advocates, if they want to write and show their thought leadership, they're able to be published there. So lots of opportunities to engage, connect. And if you don't want to be an advocate, but you do love HubSpot and want to connect with other fellow HubSpot users, feel free to join the community and connect with others there.
Perfect. And I'm trying to think of anything else here to wrap us up. What other final words of advice would you give to our audience listening here? What are the kind of key takeaways? If they took nothing else away from the episode, what do they need to be taken away?
You you will always feel compelled to take care of the angry people first, and that's fine. You should put out the fires, but you should also water the flowers. If you ignore the happy people, the people who love you, and you only take care of the people who are angry with you, you are conditioning your audience to only talk about you when they're mad.
Clip it. Another clip. I mean, what are we gonna what are we gonna do here? So, Christina, it has been great talking with you. I look forward to
Yeah.
engaging with you on Twitter. We've had Steph Smith over at
Mhm.
Trends and now HubSpot,
Yep.
right? She's been on the show. She's a great
She's
friend. So,
awesome.
uh, loved having you on, and looking forward to our next conversation, Christina.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
Real quick, where can people Twitter handles or anything like that to follow along your journey specifically?
Yeah. I am that Christina G on Twitter.
Awesome. Good spot. We'll engage you there. All right. Christina, thanks for coming on. It's been great.
Thanks for having me.
Everybody listening, we'll see you next time.
Hey guys, before you head out, just wanted to say thank you so much for listening to the show. If you enjoyed it, head over to iTunes to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. That helps more of your peers find the show as they search for ways to get better in their own roles. But this podcast is just a small part of what we do at Engagement. In our normal day in the office, we're crazy focused on helping athletic departments and sports and entertainment companies generate more revenue by becoming more customer-centric. To see how we might be able to help your organization, visit engagementpartners.com to learn more. Download a free guide, check out our blogs and case studies, or schedule a call with us if you want to see how we can help with your particular objectives. Our goal is to help you create deeper connections with fans and generate more revenue. So when you're with us, hopefully you find a nugget or two that helps your cause.